Hello, my name is Pete Tseronis. I am the CEO and founder of Dots and Bridges. I'm the former Chief Technology Officer for the United States Department of Energy and Education. I had a wonderful run for 25 years, and I'm excitingly honored and super fired up to chat today with my colleague and friend, Mr. Adam Goldberg, the Acting Assistant Commissioner within the Office of Financial Innovation and Transformation at the Department of Treasury, or the Treasury Department's Bureau of the Fiscal Service. So welcome, Adam.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. Adam and I are going to chat a little bit about the mission of the Treasury Department, the role of the Bureau, and then his own leadership and style, if you will, to help mold our next generation workforce, and discuss a few of the programs here at the department. A little bit more background on this incredibly awesome individual. Adam not only supports financial management transformation, he focuses on topics like blockchain, robotic process automation, artificial intelligence. He's a technologist, but he's also a guy that knows how to explain what all this means to you, the citizen, the resident, the Joe Sixpack, as I like to say. Adam's previous positions helped him gain an understanding, you can read this in his bio, about how this technology, humanity, and culture intersection evolves and requires constant feeding. We live in a world, right, Adam? We talked about this early on, about technology underpinning sectors like the financial markets that then support our cities and communities, and the important role that technology does indeed play, but it's a crowded space, and distilling some of that information we'll talk a bit about when it comes to technology due diligence. Rounding out his distinctive career, Adam served as an advisor to the Ministry of Finance in the Republic of Guinea. He has a BA in political science and history from the University of Rochester. Rachacha, I have a friend up there, by the way, good friend from Villanova. Masters of Public Administration from the Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs at Syracuse University. So again, honored to have you, Adam. I'm going to jump right in and ask you, what do you love most about working within and for the federal government?
I think that what I get from my federal service is a sense of being able to kind of give back to others in terms of supporting this country, supporting the taxpayer, and being able to do things better than we were able to do the day before. And that's really what gets me excited every morning when I go into work, which is, what can I do to make things better for the people that we serve in the government and outside?
Do you find that a lot of, great comment, by the way, I love that mission modernization, and do you find that collaboration both in the culture of government and industry is something that requires constant attention? I mean, the president's management agenda speaks about, and whether it's this presidency or administrations past, you and I both know that technology modernization and data is so important, but that 21st century workforce, do you emphasize a lot of that mentoring and coaching within both at the department and in the Bureau, as well as with industry understanding your mission?
Yeah, there's a need for partnerships all across the board. First of which is partnerships within your organization. And I work for one that has I think sometimes a simple mission, but there's lots of different moving pieces, and making sure that you're staying abreast of all those moving pieces is important. I think there's also a great need for the relationships outside of government. Government, sometimes we come up with the ideas and ask industry to help us support them or build them. And I think in other cases, industry comes to us and says, have you thought about this? And how would you take care of it? And without those relationships, I think a lot of the ideas that we pursue would never even rise to the top. And so keeping those relationships, keeping those partnerships strong is really essential to our being successful.
And in the theme of partnerships and open government, participatory, transparent, collaborative, partnerships and relationships require trust. And I believe that trust is earned, right? And in a world where it's a lot of buying and selling of technology, I tend to think of it as seeking and solving. How do you, in your own style, engage that partnership discussion as a person who is a thought leader, a change agent, an executive? I mean, Adam, the fact of the matter is everybody and their brother would love to meet with you on a daily basis, and you're a busy guy molding a team and leading and managing up and down. How do you like to and enjoy the process of fostering that trust?
Well, one, I would hope that everyone wants to meet with me for good reason. Sometimes, you may not always make decisions that everyone agrees with. Um, you know, having a dialogue and building trust is really critical. And again, at the end of the day, probably the thing that I have to rely on most is my reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And so if people don't trust me, trust that I follow up on what I say I'm gonna do, then there will be a shift in terms of who people want to go and talk things out with. Um, but I know that I need to set up a regular cadence with industry through whatever different venues I can access. So sometimes it's my opening the doors up at the fiscal service to nearly anyone who really wants to come chat with me about an idea. And then the second is really paying attention to what else is going on in the marketplace to get a sense of what things we might want to pursue. And I think that always there's something sitting out there that's a solution for another problem
Mm.
that may become a solution for one of my needs. And being able to make that translation is really important, which is how do we shift this paradigm so that something that I wouldn't have ordinarily thought would be a solution to what I have, how can I translate that into one of my opportunities?
Well, I love that. Storytelling, translation, helping industry understand the mission of, and maybe we can pivot back to, which is what I always enjoy, the story of Adam and his journey. Can you talk a little bit, taking, this is not a hardball here. This is how you ended up at the Bureau of Fiscal Service with a pretty darn cool title. But what molded you along the way? So take us back. How has this journey been from outside government and into, and tell us a little bit about, what were those moments where you had, or light bulb moments that wanted you to pursue this career in the federal government?
Yeah, I had a desire to work for government right from kind of the early part of my career, dating back to college, where politics was part of my bachelor's degree, and I thought that really going into public service was important. Went to the Maxwell School again, public administration. That was my track. And then I had a couple opportunities out of grad school, one of which was in state government, which was
Mm.
a really cool opportunity. I actually think in the scheme of things that had that been an opportunity in the federal space, I might have pursued it. But I grew up in New York. I went to college in New York, and going to Albany didn't seem like as big of a shift as I wanted to make. So DC really was the interest area, and went to work at a defense agency doing budget stuff. And I
Hmm.
think that really opened my eyes to kind of the breadth of what government does. I worked at the Defense Logistics Agency, and I make a joke to folks that I once did a tour of a depot, and in the depot they had shovels and asphalt and all this other stuff. And I kept saying, why do you need a shovel? And they said, Adam, we have bases and it snows and we have to shovel the snow, and the asphalt gets cracks and we have to fill the cracks. And really, the fact of the magnitude of the government and what we did really just got me energized and excited. And I spent a little time then after the government in the private sector, where I was doing some system development work for financial systems, and found that interesting, but really was on kind of the receiving end where someone else was telling me what the specifications were, and
Hmm.
really had a lot of ideas, but didn't know how to get them considered, evaluated. And an opportunity came up at OMB suddenly one day. And I said, this would be a great thing. And it really fit with my background. And, that's how I ended up at OMB. So I went from this role of kind of a designer to a policymaker. and was able to say kind of how might we do a better job of implementing the solutions that we have, or asking people to develop for us, and how we can develop better policy for that. And thought I had a pretty good stint there at OMB for about 6 years. But then I had a lot of ideas from a strategy standpoint, which I really couldn't execute. And an opportunity came up with an organization that, in fact, I had worked on creating, which was the Office of Financial Innovation and Transformation, which was more of a strategic role. And then was able to kind of jump in a leadership position there. So I went from kind of designer, policymaker to statistician. I don't know what.
I like that. I like that. Statistician. I'm writing these down, brother. You have got some tweets of tweets. So.
And what it was able to do was actually bring me closer to the solutions, again, and the delivery and the design of those solutions.
Yeah. So well, I want to go back to this tapestry, this journey, this walkabout, which I find very similar. I ended up in the Pentagon, and then somehow was at Department of Education. And next thing I knew, I was running a data center, and then was one day stint at OMB. So you had 5 years and 364 days on me, but I got enough to say, wow, this place is different. The optics are different. I think this designer, policymaker, statisticians, amazing. And if anyone watching this today, Adam Goldberg is the acting assistant commissioner within the Office of Financial Innovation and Transformation. But 6 years at OMB and understanding policy and how the executive branch works with the agencies, I think's amazing. I learned a lot about you leading up to this interview, but this systems development background, state government, I mean, Adam, that is what I talk about when it's, how you have cultivated your leadership. And maybe this is a good time to pivot into that, because, becoming or being presented with an opportunity at the Bureau of the Fiscal Service, before we get into the Financial Innovation and Transformation mission, can you break that down? I mean, I think of the Department of Treasury, and then there's the office, and then there's the Bureau of Fiscal Service. How does somebody navigate? What's that relationship from big headquarter Treasury to where you're working?
So Treasury, the department itself, I would say, is really the policy maker.
Okay.
And so it's really in existence to set the policy for Treasury overall. And then you have many bureaus and organizations underneath it. The one that most people are familiar with is the Internal Revenue Service, which is our tax collecting side. And then the Bureau of the Fiscal Service is really kind of the nuts and bolts, the day-to-day financial delivery organization for the federal government as a whole. So people who receive a paycheck, a check from the government, that check is going to be issued by the Bureau of the Fiscal Service for most cases. People who send in their money for something like a passport, they may not know that it's actually not going to the State Department. That check is actually coming to the Bureau of the Fiscal Service for processing. If there's debt that's delinquent, we will be the organization that might actually collect that and settle that debt if there's a need to, if the individual is unable to pay. So a lot of the day-to-day operational side of the central accounting of the government is happening at the Bureau.
Okay, well, that gave me a nice breakdown personally, and I find that to be, again, something that I can actually say, wow, guess what I learned today? And that's, again, awesome to share. And I think that's important. We think of the department, we think of the federal government, we think of the Beltway. We're going to pivot into the fit here, but technology now, and 90 billion or thereabouts a year, right? Adam, the government spends on IT support and services on average, and a lot of that is cloud and cyber and data and analytics and yada yada yada. Blockchain there's always a, as I like to call it, buzzword bingo discussion. Talk a bit now about this opportunity where you came and you've now developed and lead this Financial Innovation and Transformation Office. What's its mission? And frankly, I'm interested in how does this office that identifies and helps to carry out innovative solutions so that government agencies can become more efficient and transparent in federal financial management, is examining all the technology out there to support and underpin the mission of your department. Can you talk a bit about its mission, fit, and
Sure. I want to take one step back, which is why FIT even came into being, which was
okay.
the predecessor organization to FIT that had been in existence for roughly 20 years. And it had actually set the standards for financial systems in the government. And we'd reached this kind of point where we were getting kind of the law of diminishing returns, which is we kept doing the same thing, but we weren't really seeing large improvements. And the whole concept of fit was based on that premise of insanity in Einstein. It's doing the same thing over and over again and getting a different result. The creation of fit was really intended to say, hey, let's not continue to recreate something and think that we're going to get something different. Let's actually shift to something different. And let's really take a new perspective on how we want to look at financial systems or accounting systems in the government. And that was the original premise that we moved forward. What we started out to be and what we've become have been very different, but I think still very aligned. Meaning originally what we were saying is, how could we stand up capabilities much smaller than an accounting system, a whole accounting system, but things that we know that we could get up quicker and get a return on investment sooner. And a lot of this is kind of buzz around cloud, but how do I do something like electronic invoicing? And how can I stand up that capability? Because we know the lift is smaller, but the return is much greater than I might get when I implement an entire ERP system. Well, over the years, we were very successful in getting some of those types of solutions up and running, but there was a desire to not just limit ourselves to an accounting system. And so what we tried to do was expand on the types of solutions and the technologies that we were looking at. And that really gets us to probably around the last few years, where we really have looked to become a catalyst for innovation in the federal space.
So that reimagining, rethinking, don't doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, I think is indicative, getting on my little soapbox, of a crowded market. And I mentioned 90 billion. I know, Adam, working with you and some of these public-private partnerships, that there's no shortage of a new tech or a new buzzword. And of course, industry, having been in industry yourself, there's always an opportunity to come and say, we can help. We have the solution, government. I'm going to ask you to keep that federal hat on, strategist, statistician, but a technologist that you are. I think it's important to constantly educate industry on the protocol or how to engage for a conversation, not to sell right off the bat, but to really understand the mission. Can you speak to, hey, if you're a company, large, small, startup entrepreneur, and you're interested in, having a conversation about our mission, and maybe there's some alignment, does the Financial Innovation and Transformation Office offer that type of forum for conversation?
Yeah. So one thing that we've done in terms of a forum is the last couple of years, we've opened up time in the afternoons once a week where we've asked companies to come in and come talk to us. But one of the things that we like to do in that conversation is, like you've been saying, tell a story. And we've tried to align those conversations such that someone's not coming to me and just selling a technology to me, but they're trying to apply it to a process that we're performing in the federal government, and how that solution can come help me improve the process that we're working on. And I think without the right stories, we're never going to get to the right set of solutions. And sometimes we know the story or we know the problem that we're trying to solve, and it's very easily applied the technology to that problem. Sometimes we don't. And I think that's where that partnership with industry is really critical. And even a partnership within the government, which is, when I was at OMB, sometimes we said, hey, here's a great idea. Let's put policy out. And we talked to folks, but did we really have a good detailed understanding of what the situation was? And today, I think I'm better positioned to have those conversations in terms of understanding the problems and the needs and bringing the right stakeholders, whether federal or industry, to the table to have that discussion.
Well, Adam, I've always thought of you as a dot connecting bridge builder, and those listening today hopefully heard a bit of there is protocol. We're all busy folks. We're in a virtual world today, and just maybe picking up the phone or communicating, or if you have a chance to watch this or meet an Adam, it shouldn't be about look at my product. It's, hey, can we have a conversation? I have a story to tell. So I team that with your translation. Being able to translate why your capability may be able to support us at the Bureau of the Fiscal Service. So Adam, I'm going to go into some of the featured projects that, at least, again, full disclosure, I looked at them on the website, so it's publicly available. Artificial Intelligence Accelerator, Digital End-to-End Efficiency, Distributed Ledger Technology, Next Generation Analytics, Maturity Self-Assessment Tool, Innovation Partnerships, Robotic Process Automation, and Treasury Financial Experience. Is this a growing body of projects, and what is the life? What is involved with these kinds of projects? Do you have teams of people? Is it focused individuals? How do these become featured projects?
Sure. It always feels like a growing set of projects, and we like it to be that way.
Yes.
You have to say, like, the team, there's 17 of us. So in all the projects that you've listed off, we're a pretty small group of folks that gets to focus on these types of things. The projects can last anywhere from 6 months, which was really what our robotic process automation work was, in terms of being able to do a pilot of that, to our blockchain work, which has been going on several years. And I think that really depends on the sophistication of the product or technology, or even what we know about it. So in the case of robotic process automation, that was something that I think had greater maturity in the marketplace. And with RPA, in many cases, what you're doing is you're automating the manual process today, not really re-engineering it. So you're basically saying, human does it today, we're going to have the computer replicate it, which will then allow the human, the individual, to focus on different things. Whereas in the case of blockchain, that technology several years ago was very new. And we didn't have as good an understanding of, one, how that technology worked, and what was the right story or example or challenge that we needed to apply to do that. And so very similar to what we did with RPA, we worked in small increments, roughly 4 to 6 months, where we would kind of build on prior knowledge and learning and move forward on that. And that's really been one of the keys to our success, is that we do work in smaller increments than one might typically work in kind of in the past. So we can call that agile or whatever term we want to give to it, but those small increments have really been critical to our moving forward, and also allowing us to pivot if we learn something new and we need to shift our emphasis.
Is it fair? No, great explanation. Thank you. And I listed these at least 8. And I think of, if I'm listening to this, I hear robotic process automation, mature, I hear blockchain, it might be burgeoning. How do you engage the topic of, hey, we know there's a lot of cool technology out there and it's constantly being reinforced, and the government gets excited and integrators come in and say, hey, we can help you with. Can you talk a little bit about that articulation of, hey, before you come in, do your homework, understand what our challenge and mission is. And sometimes I hear, well, Pete, we don't know what they are. And I say, well, why don't you ask that question versus handing out a card all the time and saying, hey, can I get a meeting with you? Can you give maybe a piece of advice to our industry partners that says, hey, before you come in and we have the conversation, for it to be fruitful, or at least to get off on the right foot, where do they go to find out about your mission challenges? Publicly available information, that is, other than hearing you speak, of course, and putting it out there.
Yeah, one similar to, you can go to our website. We write blogs. So you can go and read the blogs that we put out. I think we put out somewhere over 50 over the last couple of years. So we're constantly trying to write about what we're doing. But if you're going to meet with anyone, I think in the federal government, probably the first place I would look is a couple GAO reports.
Mm-hmm.
They do a nice job of kind of articulating some of the challenges that we're facing. I would go look at the president's management agenda. Always a good place to look, and then look historically at previous agendas, because I don't know if all the problems that we've identified in the past always get resolved. And then again, I think just begin to look at the surroundings of what's going on at the agencies as well, what's happening in their audit reports. I think they're often very telling. And it's better to go in kind of with an idea and miss than to go in with nothing and expect, again, me to just be the one who gets to talk. Not that I mind, but again, to your point, let's create a dialogue with one another.
So wonderful. And I can't help it in my stream of consciousness, Adam. We talk technology. Obviously, your journey has impacted your leadership style, and I commend you for what it's worth, for being so collaborative and having that experience. And I think it's in a world we're living in today where press and flesh, literally and figuratively, is not as much an option. We just finished the executive leadership conferences, as you and I both worked on the teams, and bringing together a virtual community, I think has spearheaded the opportunity and impetus and need for folks need to get smart on this tech stuff, right? Even if it's just from a practical use standpoint. So the question I have for you is, in a time of COVID, in a time of pandemic, in a time where, hey, this will, God willing, be resolved soon, the workforce is changing. You mentioned automation, 21st century workforce, to your point, is part of the president's management agenda, but the human in the loop is still important. Putting on your vision hat, talk a little bit about what you're experiencing like the rest of the world is, and what you view the future workforce like, and how important it is to, know that automation is necessary, but what an opportunity for reskilling and retaining and recruiting.
Yeah, none of us had any kind of advance notice as to what was going to happen here. So it felt like on one day we were at the office, on the next day we were home, and we were all trying to figure out Skype and Teams and Zoom and all of those things. And so we've gone through a very rapid process here where I think it's amazing how successful we've been able to do in terms of shifting from office to home. And it's also begun to give us an idea of how we need to make shifts into digital, and how this may accelerate the digital transformation. But I think the other thing that we're beginning to learn is, how do we interact with one another differently than we were doing 6 months ago or even a year ago? And so, as an example, I've been challenging my team to move beyond a Zoom meeting with one another, but can we incorporate polling into a discussion? So then it's not passive engagement, it's active engagement.
Love it.
For the executive leadership conference with ACT-IAC, there was a techno forum where actually someone put up some material, and everybody could interact with that material by drawing on it, which I wasn't aware we could do. But that was, again, active engagement, which we're now trying to bring into our daily activity. And there are some events that even FIT is doing with others, specifically some academics, in the next couple of weeks, where we're trying to do an interactive kind of human-centered design type engagement with the external stakeholders. And again, I think this is beginning to reflect the evolution of how we have a virtual and physical exchange with different groups.
Yeah, these are amazing. I mean, I'm writing these down. Folks, again, from shifting to digital transformation, how to interact differently, while at the same time, if you're selling into the government or developing business with, hey, you're hearing it from Adam Goldberg. Do a little bit of homework, understand our mission, obviously read IG reports and GAO reports, but But boy, don't overlook the fact that this is how we're communicating now. And I agree with you. I think the polling, active engagement, which I took away just now in this segment as significantly something I'm going to even continue to do, because I love that. That's that two-way asynchronous interaction that's so important. So we're coming to the close here in a bit, Adam, but I want to give a shout out a little bit to, again, the fit, and something that caught my attention was this financial management innovation partnership, where you have innovation showcases, agency partnerships. Folks, there are related links about everything that Adam's been speaking to historically and currently, but OMB 16-11, Circular A 123, Appendix D, OMB Memorandum 13-08, and OMB Memorandum 10-26 just represent some of the lineage that you might want to be smart on as a tip. But, before we get to the parting shot here, Adam, the FMIP, what's that all about?
Yeah, so the FMIP, the Innovation Partnership, really came out of a lesson learned, which was when FIT had projects and we approached agencies and said, would you like to participate in this with us? Oftentimes the agency would come back and say, absolutely, but I already have a list of priorities and things that other people are asking of me, and I don't have the time for the extracurricular with you. And we felt it was really important to make sure that we were focusing on challenges that we just weren't identifying in isolation, to my earlier point, but it was something that the agencies found to be important to them. And so we said, let's shift the paradigm around a little bit. Let's have them come to us with their problems, maybe something that they're already planning on working on, and we will provide a little bit of funding. And I emphasize a little bit because sometimes people come in with really big numbers to us, but we'll help fund that. And really the only requirement at the end of the day is you give me a progress update, and that it be something that other people could use or leverage beyond just you. And so in the last few years, we've done a couple things. I think our most successful work was actually with robotic process automation. This was probably 3 years ago, where we did give some funds to 2 different agencies in terms of supporting their RPA evolution. And this is a program that we've been trying to continue for the last few years. Again, trying to make the agency's needs come into us versus we go to them with what we believe or perceive to be their problem or need.
Well, that is awesome. A nexus, if you will. Did I hear you correctly in that you actually support and help other agencies outside of Treasury Department? Or is it within the department that you like to help, as you say? Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Well, I'll say with, in air quotes, a simple interagency agreement.
Sure.
But
no. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have agencies come into us and present their ideas, and then if they are acceptable and meet all the criteria, then we will offer them a little bit of funding to help them support their effort.
And I only went there because I keep thinking incubation. It's such a big, important part of government and that industry partnership. We know about Silicon Valley and Austin's and Boston's and St. Louis and other places. There's a lot of this ingenuity happening in government, and I again think it's amazing, and that you and your team and the department are helping facilitate some of that opportunity and accelerating it across government. Okay, so I did say we're going to go on a parting shot, but if there was something that you can impart is, here we are in 2020, and a year from now, are there any kind of challenges now that you're hoping a year from now, 3 years, 5 years from now, or maybe the role that technology is going to provide or afford to change the way business is being conducted? We talked earlier about, video communications, enabling opportunities for more of this active engagement. You're Nostradamus, being a Greek guy. What are some of the challenges you think you're going to move beyond as a result of technology's insertion into the department?
Well, I think the opportunity that lies ahead with us is what I would call digital treasury finance. I really think that's that next opportunity, and I believe that Treasury serving in a role as a catalyst to other agencies. So we are doing things to be as digital as possible at Treasury. We are also developing solutions that we believe to help agencies move to their digital transformation as well. And we hope that continues to flow through all the things that our agencies are doing in order to get to that shift or get to that aspiration of being a digital treasury. And when I use it, it's kind of a big T, not limiting to the Treasury Department, but to the Treasury functions that all the agencies are responsible for executing.
Well, that's awesome. I want to remind folks just on that, if I can riff off of it, Adam, the Treasury Department represents, or should I say, is affiliated with one of those 16 critical infrastructure sectors in our country. There are 16 defined by DHS. There could be more in the future, but these are the water, the wastewater, the energy, the transportation, the manufacturing. Smart cities, smart communities depend on this. We as residents and citizens, those owners and operators to support that infrastructure, our banking industry, defense industrial base. Thank you, Adam, for the shout out that Treasury might be a sector specific agency supporting a sector, but I hope people realize that these are the critical sectors that we need and depend on each and every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So that was a great parting shot for me there, Adam. But now you're on the spot, my friend. Be it a call to action or a parting shot, what would you like to leave with our folks today who tune in?
I was thinking about this, Pete, kind of beforehand, and I think what I want to say is good ideas don't get better with age. If you have a good idea, bring it up. Let's start talking about it. Sometimes I think the things that we come up with on the spot can often be equally as impactful as things that we sit on for years. And if you don't start the conversation now, we may not be having it. So even things that we've talked about, or I talked about 10 years ago, are now coming up as things that we actually can do today. So let's keep raising these things, because eventually someone will have the ability to help us solve this where they might not have had it a few years ago.
That was eloquent and to the point. I love that. I mean, that was a tweetable moment for me, Adam. So listen, this is phenomenal. I appreciate this. I know the audience will. I feel like we crystallized a bit about not only who you are, but the department you serve and your journey. It's tremendous and it's impactful. And I, again, am honored to know you. And I'm glad that you're also just a regular guy who has a cool job and is passionate about serving our country as you are. So we will be in touch. Until another day, I want to just say to the audience that this show is about that technology, humanity, culture intersection. Technology affects humanity. Humanity influences culture, and culture shapes the technologies we use. And Adam, you today epitomize that triangulation. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Pete. It's been a great morning. Thank you.
You bet.